Yes, he did.
Well, if you don't know what fair is, you can't make it.
Donnybrook is made possible by the support of the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation and the members of 9PBS.
Well, fall is here, but the St. Louis City Hall encampment is gone. Among the topics we'll talk about this half hour on Donnybrook. Thanks so much for joining us. Let's meet our panelists. Sitting in for Wendy Weiss, who's taking the week off, we welcome Sarah Fenske, executive editor of the Riverfront Times and its sister publications. You all know Bill McClellan from the Post-Dispatch and STLtoday.com, and Ray Hartmann, founder of the Riverfront Times. You see his column on Substack, and from the St. Louis American, Mr. Alvin Reid. Well, Bill, we'll start with you. There was, starting in January, a small encampment, which then became about 30 tents, 37 people at Market Street and Tucker City Hall in downtown St. Louis. And then on Monday, there was a press conference among some aldermen who said there's going to be an aldermanic Bill of Rights. On Monday night, city officials began to dismantle the encampment of these homeless individuals, citing safety and health issues. There was an interruption, but by Wednesday, I believe it was pretty much gone. Some people are saying that the encampment was taken away because this weekend, the Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, and some Democratic National Committee officials are coming to town, and the city didn't want to be embarrassed. Are you buying that?
Oh, I don't know. I just support the mayor, and I have always supported NIMBY movements. You know, when somebody says, you know, not in my backyard, I agree with that. I don't think that the government should be putting, like, homeless shelters in neighborhoods or methadone clinics in neighborhoods or whatever. And so the mayor is taking that attitude now, and I think it's the right attitude. She looked out, she saw, who are these people? Somebody said they're homeless, and she said, I don't want them in my backyard.
And she gave them a good, go ahead.
Yeah, so I support the mayor on this.
And she gave them a good run. They were there, like you say, a long time. And she, like say, like, okay, I gave you an inch. You're trying to take 10 miles now. It became cause celebre. Those tents look pretty nice. Somebody bought them. They're homeless. They don't have any money. Where'd the tents come from? Look, you know, there comes a time when enough is enough, and it was time to go. And people making it sound like it's Tiananmen Square down there. It's like, no, it's time to move on.
The only thing is, it was time to move on, just like this past spring when the XFL, the Battlehawks, were about to play at the Dome. And again, the city removed the tents that were over there on Laclede's Landing so the Battlehawks fans wouldn't interfere with it. Across the street at Pelker Park, which is where the firefighter statue is, the memorial, and it's now also cordoned off.
Because they're cleaning it up.
Because they're cleaning up. But they've been there for 4 years.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of cleaning.
So,
Well, once Kamala Harris leaves, then everybody can go back to normal.
I mean, look, this is like, if you're going to clear a homeless encampment in a humane way, you don't begin it at 10 p.m.
Thank you.
I mean, this was something that was designed to just do a show of force, get people out of there quickly. Our reporter, Monica Obradovic, was down there that night. She talked to the people who've been living there. They said they had not gotten notice. They said the city had sort of encouraged them. Oh, you should call 211, the United Way hotline, and see if you can get a shelter bed. There were no beds where they could stay with their husbands or keep their pets. They weren't willing to go to those beds. The city has not had no barrier shelters ever since they ran Larry Rice out of here.
That's right.
Yeah. And ironically, just last week, they once again told Larry Rice he's not allowed to reopen, and yet they have yet to figure out another solution.
Well, and it's, I know, I don't, it was a nice compliment you gave the mayor. I'm sure she appreciated you.
I support her on this, right?
But I think it was handled very poorly. There were a couple of aldermen down there all till like 2 in the morning. Rashid Aldridge and young woman
Alicia Saunier.
Alicia Saunier, who, and good for them. I mean, they were out there, you know, till 2 in the morning supporting the folks, and they made. I talked to her. They made the point that you know, this is not the way you do this. I understand they're going to have to move, and this is done, by the way, every city does this. When you talk about Harris coming here, Super Bowls, it's universal that cities sweep
I particularly liked it when it was the Pope. There was something about that where we got to run the homeless off because the Pope is coming.
They do that. They all do that. And I mean,
I'd like to quibble with you on that one because cities across the country, from L.A. to San Francisco to Portland, Chicago, Boston, at the famous Mass and Cass corner, they're not dealing with it. They're not moving them. They're unable to do it. And the reason is you need counselors. And because many of these individuals have drug problems and there aren't enough counselors, and those counselors that could do the work, they're not doing it unless there's security.
I'm talking
and
about
those are two things we don't have in St. Louis.
I'm speaking about event-driven sweeps, which is what they do for the Super Bowl.
That's kind of like sheer number. See, that's one thing that's frustrating about St. Louis. With our population, and then you take the number of people that are homeless or criminals or anything else, it's such a small percentage compared to a Chicago or whatnot. And then real quick, I was just trying to get all caught up on this, and I'm looking about something and realized that 2 years ago, the mayor actually had, went to the Board of Aldermen and wanted to create an outdoor encampment with all that, and just got voted down almost unanimously. So it isn't like, I'm not doing nothing except looking out the window. And
Charlie, I agree. But the one thing she does have, she has $250 million Stan Kroenke dollars. And if she can't fix this problem now, if the St. Louis can't, it never will. Because it will never have this kind of money again.
Let me say one thing on her behalf, and I disagree with you. As far as the Larry Rice issue, the commission that looked at that recently really found that there was whatever you think about Larry Rice and the decision before, he's trying to get this zoned as a church, I think it is, and he's not following the rules. And so I don't think this city should be criticized on his point. But I do agree that they're not.
But Larry Rice really provided a service, Ray, that we need, and we'll need it again as the winter comes.
But he did the same thing in 1990 with Vince Shamel.
We have to agree to disagree.
He brought tents over.
We have a disagreement.
Yeah, right.
Okay. Second topic. We'll go to you, Alvin Reid. In St. Louis County, County Executive Page is looking for a tax increase on homes. People pay a property tax, and for the average home, I guess, in the county, which is market value $299,000. I guess the assessed value would be about $60,000. It'd be a $22 tax increase, and this is because the county now has a $48 million deficit. Well, some people are wondering, how can he give a tax break to Boeing while he's asking everybody who owns a home to increase their taxes?
Well, and over the last 15, 20 years, as my house draws closer to the creek that runs behind it, somehow the amazement goes up. I mean, come on. Look, that whole thing where, all right, we're going to give this multi-billion-dollar company a tax break, but you all need to pay more. Oh, by the way, wasn't there a discussion about giving seniors a tax break, a property tax break in St. Louis County? Maybe it didn't prevail, but there was serious talk about it. So I don't see how you can, within the same month, look at the homeowner and say, like, you need to cough up some more money. I'm not buying this.
Well, first of all, Reid Creek behind your house is an enhancement.
And we love it, wildlife and all that. But it's just funny, like I drop a golf ball and it starts rolling.
But as somebody who supported the Boeing tax break, opposed the senior tax break, I think that you need money, you need revenue. I tell you, you do. And so a small hit to homeowners, I think that it's the price you pay.
Well, I would also say, wouldn't it make sense if the county started enforcing expired tags and license plates, collect the money there? And don't forget, this is the same county executive who didn't get an even deal on that RAM settlement.
Well,
the city got
gonna say, what about the
$250 million.
Rams? I don't know.
He got 170.
Well, but that was a fair deal, though, because it had the biggest impact on the city of St.
But
Louis.
they both contributed the same amount of money on an annual basis
But they
to
lost
the dome.
but the city lost more revenue.
Hard to
than
say.
Rams.
Never
Hard
gonna
to
persuade
say.
Charlie on that one. That's he's sticking to it.
All right,
Tax increases are
Sarah,
about-
meanwhile, in the city of St. Louis, this one really shocked me. Maybe it did you too, when the mayor of the city said that she'd be in favor of some sort of tax break for seniors, a property tax break for seniors, taking advantage of state legislation that now allows counties to do this. And everybody knows the city is a county unto itself. So she would be giving seniors in the city, those 62 and older,
Yeah.
a property tax freeze. Whatever they're paying now, they'll pay ad infinitum.
Yeah, I have to hand it to the seniors. I mean, the fact that y'all vote so regularly, it's really paying off great for you and paying off at the expense of young families. You know, I am a city resident, and when I look around at some of my neighbors who are a little bit older, some of them are doing spectacularly well. You know, they're living in really nice houses, they're working at big law firms, they're making a lot of money. I'm very happy for them. I don't think of them as the people who should be getting a freeze that should be paid for by some single mom living in North City. To me, this is the exact opposite of equity. And if we're not going to do some means-based test as a part of this, it's hard to get behind this.
I don't know anything about seniors, but I will say that talking about I'm with you, and I hate to be. I do think Mayor Jones has her heart in the right place on this. I don't really argue with the fact that, you know, she's proposed it, but as a practical matter, the city needs more young families like yours, and the people that are leaving are not generally the seniors. I think that may be an overstatement, but I think it's more likely to be young folks.
It's young black families. That's who's leaving.
Okay, and I just think that of all the entities that are not really in a position to be cutting revenues, you know, there's so much pressure, so much unfair pressure on the earnings tax and all the other stuff. The last thing the city needs to do is talk about tax cuts right now.
And I think that you brought that up about the earnings tax. If you go in,
that's a big
into
problem.
Your earnings tax, like I said, like, okay, but you're going to give seniors a tax break, but defend the earnings tax. And last time I looked, St. Charles County, you know, the median income was much larger than the city of St. Louis's, and I was against it for St. Charles County. And quite frankly, the McCloskeys over there on Portland Place getting a tax break rubs me the wrong way.
It is working people with kids that need all the breaks these days, and as an old person, I think it's crazy.
And let me ask you something, though. You brought up the earnings tax. Do you think that our leaders are kind of acting like ostriches with their heads in the sand? Because there is litigation right now that says that if you work outside of the city, you shouldn't have to pay the earnings tax. And a lot of people are working remotely. And it's not just the lawsuit that says that. That's what the city's own ordinance regarding the earnings tax says. It's only for those who live in the city and work physically in the city. If you're working in Bozeman, Montana as a lawyer for Brian Cave, you're not supposed to be paying that any more than one of the Cardinals would be paying the earnings tax when he is performing at Citi Field.
But you have to let that litigation play out.
But it's going to happen.
Well, okay, I understand that.
You don't know what the outcome is.
I think there's a good chance of it.
Well, let's hope not.
Charlie, not to make it but for the last 2 years, you knew affirmative action was going to go bye-bye as soon as that got to the Supreme Court. I didn't expect corporations to just drop what they were doing, knowing that it's coming down the line. So, but I mean, so I can't expect the city to say like, all right, we're about to fire half of the people that work here.
But what they're saying is, okay, but there is this litigation, and there's a good chance they're going to lose the earnings tax, but at the same time, they're talking about freezing the property taxes for seniors.
Oh, well, okay. I hear you on that. But
Charlie, as far as the earnings tax is such a ginormous amount of money compared to that. And I'm with Alvin. I mean, you fight it and fight it as best you can because it is a justifiable tax.
Which one is?
The city earnings tax is
wow,
a
really?
justifiable tax, and it will be crushing to the. It will cause a dramatic emergency.
Well,
and to Alvin's point,
you better get used to it.
No, you don't.
Because it's going to happen.
The point is, you do not, you know.
Right.
Start planning for
there's
doomsday before it happens.
There's only 286,000 people living in the city. When I got here, it was 400,000. That doesn't say too much about what the effect I've had on the city.
Yeah.
But as Sarah points out, the biggest group that's moving out now are black families. So as people leave, you're losing that. Those people in North County or in St. Charles, they're not paying it. And then, so that's already going down.
Well, you don't know that the earnings tax is going to lose.
But it's already going down because there are fewer residents.
Black families are moving out, but what we are seeing is we're seeing more like single, relatively affluent, like young men moving in. It's interesting. The city's median income is actually going up as its population drops. So I don't know that this is as doomsday as you think as far as the earnings tax.
It would be if they do away with it.
Well, yeah, but
because you're talking about 30% of the budget.
You know, why are we talking about freezing these taxes for well-heeled?
That I agree.
Okay.
I'm stuck
Next
on it.
topic, we go to St. Clair, Missouri, Ray Hartmann, where we find a teacher in the high school there who also had a side job, still does, I think, as a porn star on a site called OnlyFans. And this teacher, who was making $42,000 a year for the school, was making about $10,000 a month, she claims, performing sex acts for subscribers. Well, St. Clair officials have decided to suspend Brianna Coppage, at least for the time being. Do you think she should be suspended?
No. I think and I suspect she wouldn't appreciate being, maybe she doesn't call it porn star. She's a sex worker, and there's a lot of sex workers, and, you know, my view is she didn't do anything wrong. I mean, she's on her own time. It's private, and in my view that, you know, I know, let's just put it this way. I think that if maybe they ought to consider paying teachers better, but in my opinion, she didn't do anything wrong. And if I were my kid that had her as a teacher, it would not be.
You know, I support the young woman's right to be a sex worker and to have a show, and it's probably very good. But I think
we don't know that.
Yeah, I haven't. I don't know how to work
I
the
don't
computer,
know.
so
I don't know that.
Get onto it.
No,
but I think for a teacher, it's inappropriate. I mean, because you know that all of her students are going to find a way to get onto that site. And it just, I don't know if that's a decorum you want in the school, you know. So I would tell her, you know, we'd love to have you as a teacher, but you can't be doing online sex work that the kids can watch.
Absolutely. I mean, there is such thing as like a distraction. You are a distraction to the learning process in this school, and we're not going to have it. If the shaman buffalo head guy was a teacher, all right, and every 5 minutes he's on the internet doing his shaman thing, he's perfectly within his rights, but the school district would say like,
there's a difference.
No, wait a minute, hold it.
The shaman
violated the law.
No,
the shaman didn't violate any law.
I'm not talking about, I'm not talking about when he invaded the Capitol. I'm just saying when he was doing his shaman thing.
He's still doing his shaman thing. I don't think he's a problem.
A school district could say like, no, this is a bit much.
No, I don't think so.
No, I'm telling you, a school has a right to do it, and just like they have a right to say, like, we're not going to have
dress
Sarah,
code.
what do you think? You've got young kids about your
I
school.
think about how obsessed my kids are with their teachers. I mean, they just love these teachers. They worship the ground that they walk on. They want to know everything about them. One got to meet her teacher's daughter, and this was just like meeting a movie star. You know, they want the glimpse into their private life. My kids are not yet in 9th and 10th grade, but, you know, this teacher was teaching boys and girls in 9th and 10th grade. I think it's a pretty massive distraction. And I support this woman, and I'm glad to see she gave us an interview and said that there has been this outpouring of support. And I think her career can really take off from here. I think she's chosen the more lucrative path. I'm happy for her.
But I actually agree with Ray on this one because she was at a website which is subscriber-based.
It's consenting adults.
You have to pay to get on it, consenting adults. Right. It's not illegal. It's her own private time. And if people are going to make a distraction about it, they could make a distraction about anything, including tattoos or horns or skin color or sexuality.
No, wait a minute now, come on.
No, they could. They could. She did not violate any laws.
We're not going to have any black teachers because they're a distraction.
Well, people could say anything like that, and they have.
Okay, all right, now wait a minute. So,
do you believe in liberty?
Prostitution is legal in Nevada. So if one of your kids' teachers was a prostitute on the weekend, that would be perfectly okay with you guys.
Yeah, if it's legal.
No, that's illegal.
No,
if it's legal, it's legal.
It's legal.
Okay.
And by the way, I interviewed the shower. I'm one of the few people in the country.
He did have a bad year.
And he's a very unusual guy. And if he wanted to be a teacher, it'd be fine with me.
And it'd be perfectly okay for him to teach your kids.
Yeah.
I would not. I don't believe that. I don't
if he wasn't
believe
a
that.
lawbreaker.
I don't even care if he was.
This is the reverse of NIMBY.
He'd be an unusual teacher.
Wait, this is the kind of reverse of NIMBY. I think this is all okay with you all because it's out here in St. Clair someplace.
No, it isn't.
Bring this to your school district.
I don't know. It would not bother. I can say it would not bother me with my kids.
No, at our kids' grade school, we did have a parent who danced for a living in one of the gentlemen clubs. And you know what? Everyone was just cool with it. No one made a big deal whatsoever.
Not to be cool with it.
It's no one's business.
Right.
Yeah, but it wasn't a distraction. No one asked her to leave.
This is a teacher, Charlie, and the kids. You might say, you might say, well, it's a private internet thing. Kids are going to find the way onto that. Come on.
Well, that's their problem.
Well, no, it isn't their problem.
Apparently, she was a good teacher, people said.
Okay,
and we have so few good teachers.
And according to Bill, a good performer.
Yeah, well,
I don't know. I haven't seen.
Moving on, there is a sex offender in Hazelwood. His name is Thomas Sanderson, and your paper writes about him this week. Maybe, did you write the story?
Ryan Kroll, who's our great news reporter.
Yeah, for sure. And this fella, about 20 or so years ago, committed statutory sodomy with a 16-year-old when he was 38. So he's on the sex offender list. And as Halloween approaches, Sarah, he doesn't want any sign on his house that he's off limits to trick-or-treaters, but that's the state law.
Yeah, so he's filed a lawsuit challenging that state law, filed it in federal court. He got Scott Rosenblum's firm to do this, so I imagine, they're putting some resources into this. I think this is a good case here because I think, this idea of stranger danger and I'm opening my house to trick-or-treaters and I'm just going to snatch one of them up. That is not how kids end up in sex abuse situations. It's not. This is one of these things that makes people feel good. Is it actually keeping kids safe to have these signs out front?
Of course not.
I have yet to see any research that suggests such.
I've been so politically popular tonight. I have to say you're right. And by the way, this topic, whether in some fashion, is being litigated, not necessarily this particular scenario, all over the country. The politicians pass laws, and everybody, no one's, okay with sex offenders. But they pass these kind of feel-good laws about, you got to register, you got to do this, and they're all losing on First Amendment rights. They're routinely losing First Amendment lawsuits that were well intended, but that really and they trample people's rights long after this.
Yeah, the sex offender lists are. I don't like them. I mean, and they're too inclusive. There's people on the sex offender list for their life who shouldn't be. And, like you say, Ray, with the legislators, the problem with the laws is nobody's willing to stand up to take the side of the sex offenders, so the laws just got more draconian and more draconian. So I think this guy's.
I'm not sure if it's that draconian. If he did commit a sexual offense against a minor, and trick-or-treating is when minors go up to your door and ring the bell, I think it's prudent to have a law saying, hey, you turn off the lights on this one night, Halloween. And I think that one sex offender who was recently on the lam, he actually did approach a young boy. Right? The guy was on the lam. We were looking for him about 2 Fridays ago. He did approach a boy who was a stranger for sex.
On
did
Halloween?
He not? No, not on Halloween.
Okay, well.
But
while he was like.
No, that was his sex offense.
Oh, all right, okay. I was just going to say, while he was roaming the streets?
I did think this lawsuit was interesting, though, because they made the case that this is the kind of compelled speech that was at issue in, like, some of these crazy, like, Colorado baker and florist-type cases. People who are like, the government shouldn't be allowed to tell me I have to say something. They shouldn't be allowed to tell me I have to put up a sign that says something. I'm like, that, it feels like where current jurisprudence is going, that Missouri's law might be in trouble.
Alvin, we only have 2 minutes to go. Sorry about this, but one of the biggest brouhahas of the year is at KDHX, where about 13 staffers have been fired. Others are on strike. What do you make of this?
Well, he's a friend of mine. I will count him as a friend, Chris Lawyer. And when this all started, okay, whatever was going on, but 2 Fridays ago, when it was intimated that these people were fired because they did not stand for DEI and, quite frankly, had a hint of racism in a statement, I do believe I would have taken some kind of action on that. That is ludicrous, and that is out of control. I don't know what's going on at that crazy house over there at KDHX, but to impugn the character of people and then a few days later say like, no, that was misconstrued. The real problem was this. Oh, no, you'd be talking to Rose and Blue.
Well, that seems to be that's their default position. You know, I did a column on it when they fired Tom Ray, and it's Orwellian to talk about firing volunteers, but they have shows. And at first it was, well, he was abrasive because he wanted a memorial written for a fellow who died. And when that explanation didn't fly, it was, well, he's a bully and there's sexual harassment involved. I mean, it's just smearing.
We got 10 seconds.
It couldn't be further from the mission of KDHX as a community radio station to do this. And I have friends on both sides of it, but Tom Ray is a great guy. I gotta tell you, it's really a bad look for KDHX.
Well, unfortunately, we gave too little time. My fault to this important topic. We'll try and pick it up here next week. First, let's go to the old mailbag and see what people had to say about last week's program. Agree with the constitutionality problems with red light cameras, but people are barreling through red lights, and it's a safety issue. Beyond that, speeding is rampant and speed limits are unenforced. Tom Bailey of Webster Groves wrote that. I agree completely. Stop busing immigrants to New York and D.C. Bring them here. We should welcome as many as we can. Not only do we need the people, but I'm sure all those closing parishes would welcome them as well. That from Robert Rushing of St. Louis City. Jane Brink of Southern Illinois. The panel had quite a discussion about short-term rentals, but no one brought up family groups who live in different cities and want to stay together for an event here in St. Louis. A short-term rental allows them to do things like having informal evenings together. Thank you, Jane. And we got this from the 9 line.
The bad blood between Shalonda Webb and Angela Mosley stems from the fact that Shalonda Webb beat Angela Mosley's sister 3 years ago for the county council seat and is running for re-election next year. Their spat was merely politics.
Thank you, Rick Dorsey from Florissant. You can write us, care of 9PBS 63108. Don't forget those emails, Donnybrook at 9pbs.org. And when posting on X, use hashtag DonnybrookSTL. Call the 9 line, 314-512-9094, and listen to us on your favorite podcast source, Apple, Spotify, TuneIn, and Google Play. Thank you so much to Sarah Fenske for sitting in for Wendy Weiss, who will be back next week at this time. So will the rest of us. Have a great week.
Donnybrook is made possible by the support of the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation and the members of 9PBS.